Hey y'all, it is Moonlight Cowboy, and today we are going to do a tutorial on how to build on the side of a cliff. Now, you can build on the side of a cliff with just having overhang foundations, but for us who have been building for a long time, or I would consider us like, maybe above average or pro or elite, those type of builders, well, they don't like the overhanging foundations. I'm one of those people. I don't necessarily care for them either in my build, so today I'm going to show you another way to do it where it looks like the build is braced, yet you will still be able to build on the side of a cliff and make that camp look really nice even with limited space. So first things first, I'm doing this on Seneca Rock. This is that little divot between the two mountains, and you saw where I put my camp device, so now I'm going to put some foundations into place. And once I get those into place, I'm going to put a wall out here because there was only so far I could get my foundations in there the way that I wanted them to be. So from here, I'm going to go ahead and snap a foundation in off of that wall so I can stick them in a little further, see how it kind of goes into that cliff a little bit better. And this could be any cliff that you're on. It doesn't have to be this one. I would be doing the same thing. So the next thing I'm looking at here, once I get some foundations in place, this is just to make sure everything is fitted correctly and the foundations are where they need to be. What I'm going to end up doing, first show you how to get foundations into place when there's something in the way, like an environmental issue, but we're not going to stick with the foundations being where they're at. What we're going to do is we're going to move the foundations over to where that part right there is not hugging that other side of the cliff so well or so much. And the reason for this is because you'll see later it'll work out a lot better for us when we're trying to put like the overhang part of the build on. It'll be a little bit cleaner. So in order to really get this thing where I want it to be, I'm going to catwalk off of it again. You can see that the environment gets in my way a little bit, but we can catwalk off of that. And now we're going to look how that's like perfect right there. The way that foundation came out is kind of where I want it on this particular spot. All right, so now we've got that into place. What we're going to do next is we're going to start with our overhangs themselves. And to do this, basically, I'm just double walling half walls off of the side here using catwalks. Pretty easy concept. I'm just taking the wall. When I have one wall in place, I destroy it, and then I can snap another wall instead, so that way they're double walled. You can use the red brick set for this. I'm using the corroded concrete for this. I like it a little bit better because it's a little bit more versatile for me. And I'm doing it again. So just basically taking my catwalks and going one direction, then going the other direction to get my other wall into place. See, like so. And so far, this is looking pretty good. Now, you don't just have to do it from the bottom because of those. The corroded set is really nice for this. You can do it from the top side as well. So I'm going to do it from the top because it won't allow me to get in there with the walls here in a minute, as you're going to see. See, I'm coming in from the top with the catwalks instead of the bottom. And then what I will do here is I'll destroy the wall. I'll put my, like a kind of a placeholder wall like I've done on the last few. And then when that's done, we'll just break that wall and we'll add another wall. On this, so corrugated is really good for this. A lot of people don't know you can double wall using the responder set as well for the half walls. But you'll see I use a lot of the corrugated, or I keep calling it corrugated, my bad. The corroded concrete walls. So those are now double walled, and I'm just repairing them because eventually I'm going to change the wall type to something a little bit easier to work with, which is the corroded. Yay, I did it. The corroded half walls. And we've about got this in place. I'm going to do this last wall. Hopefully you've been able to see how this process works for doing the double wall. It's basically like any other double wall you would do, except you're doing it off the side of a foundation. Now, we're going to go into how to add the angled walls at the edge. So there's two ways to do this. You could have either taken a roof, put it on the side of the wall, and then flattened it, and then added the angled and so on and so forth. The way we have to do it on this build, because the rocks and other things get in the way, is I went ahead and I did the catwalks off of the side like that, and I created another wall kind of out front. And then I added my roofs to that. I wanted them to be flat. If I did them at an angle up, then it would have made the like angled walls underneath. They wouldn't have like matched with the half walls. So this is how that's done. Make sure that the roof is going the other way when you're doing this. And if you notice, this isn't part of the build that I just did, part of the tutorial you just saw with the other foundations. That's because I accidentally deleted the footage, but I felt it was important to go back and do this part for you. So this is kind of how that's going to look in a nutshell, and we're going to double wall that. So now here we go, and I'll show you that part. So now that we got our roofs in place, all I'm doing is I kind of have if you've noticed, I have these two, I have roofs all in front. And I'm just taking two roofs and then I'm flipping them around. So I'm going to like break this, and I've already flipped that roof to where it's the other one going that way. And you'll see this again in a second. And then I can double wall those. So here again, I'm adding one, and then I'm changing which roof is angled, like so. And then I'm destroying it. And then I'm adding my other wall. And I just do that for each half wall that I have that I can get to. Now, if you notice, I can only do half of them every other one right now because I did so many of those supports. So what we're doing now is we're going to make a roof. We're going to make another set of roofs that are going the other way so I can get those other supports into place. And what I did was I catwalked off and created like kind of like a little like almost like an S there. So that way I go about half wall difference. And you'll see right now when I place this roof how that looks. See how that's now exactly half, kind of a half foundation length, I guess you could say. And yeah, so now I just got to get these roofs out of the way. And so in order to do that, I'm just moving them up and like changing the angle on them so they get disconnected from what they're like hooked onto. And there we go, one more after this, and then we are all set. All right, so now I'm going to make sure that they're going the correct way. That's not. And it'll take you a few tries. You might have to rotate it around a little bit. It won't necessarily snap when it is at an angle, and that's because it's intersecting with the wall a little bit. So you do have to kind of lay it flat. That's why it's a little bit of trial and error. And as you'll see, I struggle with this a little bit, but it is really pivotal that we get the roofs going the correct direction. You'll see here, I think I got it now. Because otherwise the walls aren't going to go the way we want them to. Because we want them to kind of the point to be out away from the build. So now we can just go ahead and do the exact same thing we were doing before. And yeah, flipping that other roof up. Then I'm using the flamethrower there to go ahead and destroy that. And yep, remove that, and then we're just gonna add our wall because we've already flipped our roof around. Boom, beautiful. And I can leave that roof up because I'm gonna do the next one real quick, and then I'm just gonna flip the roofs around so it's that roof, and we're just gonna repeat this process over and over again until you get all the supports in place that you need. For this build, I went a little over on one of them, but because of the way the cliff worked out, it actually looks still very aesthetically pleasing. But typically speaking, I would do these in you know, like 2, 2, 2, and I'd make sure it was like the length of the foundation that I was doing. But because of, like I said, that like cliff on the right hand side kind of looks like it holds it up a little bit, so I was able to kind of get away with it. Now I'm switching those walls to the corroded concrete walls. Hopefully you have this set. It's really good. If not, you can do this without them. I would recommend using probably like the greenhouse wall, something that when you destroy it, it goes almost entirely out of the way. Because what we're going to start doing here is once we get all of our walls in place, we're going to start snapping roofs through there. Because one thing I don't want to have happen with this build, I don't want it just look like it's a bunch of half walls supporting it underneath. So we're actually going to merge the roofs into these walls a little bit, so that way there's only about you only see about half the wall hanging out from underneath of this. It's going to give it a much more sleek effect. It's going to, like I said, look less like I just threw some half walls up there to make this work. So what we're doing now is we're getting our roofs back into place, doing that same kind of S or little swervy right there with the catwalks, because I want the I want the roof to align with this instead of the way they were going now. I just put those roofs there just so I could get those last of the slant walls into place. But as you'll see here, I'm going to start with what we call layering roofs. And this is important. I have a whole tutorial about this, and I'll link this in the description below if for some reason you can't catch this. But essentially you're going angled roof, half wall, angled roof, half wall, flat roof. And then when you do that, you can work your way back down just with the angled roofs and not using the half walls. And what this does is it allows the roofs to be almost perfectly layered on top of each other. And this is because there are two different snapping points for a roof on a wall. One is at an angle point, and one is at a flat. So that allows this trick to work, where you can just, like as you'll see right now when I flatten this, it is exactly one roof higher, which is perfect for what we need. We're going to do this about 9 times. So, and we'll kind of sit through this process together. But you're going to want to do this because you're going to want to be able to layer some roofs in there. You don't want to just be 1 or 2 roofs under this thing, because it'll be a little too thin. At least that's my opinion. Of course, you can take any parts of what you see in this tutorial and make it your own, right? It doesn't have to be exactly my way. Most of my tutorials, for those who've been watching for a long time, they're more like guides on how to do the tricks rather than like just like carbon copying one of my builds for the most part. And this is just another example of that. So if you want to go 2 roofs thick, go for it. It's just that you'll have more of that, more of those walls underhanging, more like, you know, from the bottom of the roof down, you'll see more of those walls. And as you see, I've got a few walls now, or a few roofs, excuse me, in place. And that's kind of what we're looking for. I've got 6 now here. And like I said, I'm going to go about 8 or 9. And this is again because I want options. I don't want to do all this and find out that like I should have gone like 1 roof lower, because I'm not going to use all of these. I'm going to use probably 4 layers. And then what I can do too, once I have the build kind of where I want it to be, I can remove the layers that are like in between the floor layer and then the underneath layer. So that way I can actually save some budget. And as you see there, I can only get so low with this roof now, because it won't let me go any lower because it's intersecting with that cliff there. So what we can do for this too, if this starts becoming a hassle, is you could just walk your roofs over to the other side and start all over again, kind of like what you would see with like an old typewriter, where you'd like, you know, that bar goes across and then you start typing your next line. You know, you could do something like that, which is what I end up doing here. So Well, at the end of the day, like I said, 8 or 9 stacked roofs should do the trick for you. But like I said here, there we go. See, I'm just going to go ahead and start over from the other side. Get one more in there. There we go. And bam. Now I believe I've got 8 now. I might get one more in here. Again, I want options. Once you've done this, like, what's the sense of not doing just one more, just to be on the safe side in case you want to change something around with like your build design or something, and just be like, oh darn it, if only I'd have gone up that one more roof. And so here we go, one more, just to be safe. Again, the combination is I angled one up, half wall, added an angled roof, and then a half wall, and then a flat roof. Then I flatten everything to unhook it. I angled this last one up to unhook it from the wall I can remove now. And then I just kind of flatten it again and I walk down the roofs. And again, I have a really good couple of tutorials on how to do some roof things. So if you guys are like, oh wow, you can do a lot with roofs, I don't know if there's anybody else out there that has more roof tutorials than I do, because they're one of my favorite building materials. They're a lot more flexible than floors, in my opinion. And as you see, I'm kind of just walking it down. I'm going to remove that one. And yeah, now I've got all the layered roofs that I need to make this work. So I can actually just start pumping those in there. As you see, I got the top layer in place already. And all I had to do was snap that over. And then once I have the first layer of roofs in place, I can start destroying them. So I can snap the next layer underneath or above, depending on which order you go into. It really doesn't matter at this point. You have your roofs ready to go as you need them. And just destroying this next layer. And you'll see exactly what I'm talking about, because we're going to do the exact same thing over again. So don't be like, oh, Moon, you missed a spot. How do I do this? Because just watch for another like 20 seconds and you'll see what we did. Because it's the same process over and over again about 4 times. So I'm just snapping the roofs. It's just like you would anything else, right? You're snapping them to the roofs there. There we go. They can be a little finicky. They don't necessarily like to do this, but that's okay. Just kind of talk them into it. And as soon as we get this last one in, we'll do the same thing over again. We will attach that roof, and then we will angle those up, destroy those, and we'll do it. Again, I'm going to do this 4 times. You could do it more if you wanted to. You just don't want to go too much, because then you kind of lose the whole purpose of this build, which is to have those really cool like supports underneath. It looks like it's supporting the whole build, which I think is like the selling point of this build. I mean, it's a good build otherwise, but that right there, that's kind of like that's the one that drops right there. Or I don't even know how to frame that. The one that slaps, I guess. I don't know. I'm old. So my apologies. I don't understand y'all's vernacular anymore. So like I said, we're going to go ahead and destroy those roofs again. There we go. Fun fact, all of my characters except for one are missing a jetpack. I did not go through the process of getting the jetpack. This is one of those characters. So I do all of this with the full knowledge that I'm probably going to fall about 5 or 6 times at least on one of these builds, where I'm just kind of hovering over, the great beyond, so to speak. So, but yeah, so we destroyed another layer of roofs. And I'm just taking it down because I don't need all of those roofs anymore. Those ones, the ones that I created there, and I'm creating my next layer. So this is 3 of 4. And on these, you can also angle them too. Sometimes it might be easier to get your roofs in. There we go. And that way you don't have to like flex them up into an angled position to destroy them. So, especially once you get the hang of it, any kind of shortcuts you can do to like, speed this along, the better for you. And I'm gonna angle those up. Cool. Now that I'm getting some of the roofs out of the way, I like to clean up after myself. I realize that this is something that'll happen to you too. Sometimes you'll try and snap a roof into place and it'll say cannot place, something's intersecting. Just change the angle of one of the roofs, or in a worst case scenario, destroy the roofs, because they do go pretty intangible after they are destroyed. So in this case, I went and I'm having to do double work, which I hate to do, in order to get my platforms in place. I could have been lazy about it, and I could have just added the flamethrowers to the tops of those roofs and destroyed it that way. But I decided, for the sake of the tutorial, that I was just going to do it the harder, longer way. Just kind of get in there and get that thing angled the correct way, and now I'm going to go ahead and destroy them. And that should do that. Now I'm adding my last layer underneath. If you accidentally snap a roof to the wrong roof, it's not the end of the world. Just change the angle of that roof and then disconnect it. But yeah, there's our fourth set of roofs in place. I'm pretty happy here. All right, so next thing we're going to do is I'm going to adjust the height of the foundation to match the roof. And in order to do that, I'm going to have to catwalk back out of my spot that I was in, because if I try and do it right there, it's going to jump up because of the environment. So kind of what we did in the beginning again, I'm going to do that same foundation trick where I kind of use catwalks to move foundations through the environmental obstacles. And then I can kind of just remove those. And now that it's in the one spot that I can make adjustments to, I can just kind of, gently move it up a little bit. So that way it's the same level as the foundation, or I'm sorry, as the roof platform. This is one of those things you don't want to do at the end when like half your build's done, because then it's going to like wreak havoc on your entire build. And as we notice here, everything is lined up pretty well. I just added those to kind of double, triple check, make sure that it's going the right way, because sometimes when you free move a foundation, it might go a little crooked. So I'm just making sure that it lines up well enough for me to continue. And now that I feel good about it, I'm just going to do the catwalk trick one more time, and I'm going to be able to get my foundations back into place. All right, so as you see here, I use the catwalks and I put my foundations back into place, so that way they kind of line up with the roof platform that I created. And I'll do the same with all the other foundations here in a little bit, probably off camera, but you get the gist. All you have to do is add your foundations back. From here, I repaired all, and I'm just flattening my roof. So I did this like super fast because I think you all know how to change the angle of a roof. And that's how that looks. So far, so good. I decided to use an underpinning around that also doubles as a railing, and all I had to do was I flexed one of those roofs that were off to the side up into the position. Again, I had 8 of them, so 8 stack is like full, one full like half wall length height. So I just flexed those around until I found the right height that I wanted for my underpinning. It was pretty easy to do. And then from here, some of the underpinnings can be a little bit tedious. Also getting if you wanted to get another foundation in place, it's also tedious. Why would I get another foundation in place when they're perfect? Well, sometimes, especially when you're building on a cliff, it could be really hard to get your like underpinnings or your walls to kind of snap into place because you can't get a catwalk on the other side. So in this case, I wanted my wallpaper on my underpinnings to be wallpaper side out, but I couldn't get a catwalk to go that far out against that cliff. It kept intersecting. So in order to fix that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to turn those walls back into the corroded concrete walls again, and then destroy the roofs, and then I'll be able to add a foundation here. And all this foundation is going to do is going to allow me to add another wall in place for an underpinning. So notice I have the other one destroyed too, or about to be destroyed as well, because it's also a corroded wall piece. And then once this is destroyed, I'm going to just add a foundation over to the edge of that foundation, as you'll see right here through the cliff there. And then I'm going to be able to snap a wall into it, because I can't go too close to the cliff. It won't let me. But I can get that close. And then all I have to do is destroy that half wall, and I can remove those foundations again. And then if you ever want to add foundations after the fact, you just kind of do the same thing in reverse, right? So we already have our underpinning there, and I want to add a foundation over there. All I'd have to do is just destroy that corroded wall right there with the flamethrower. And then I can just snap a foundation through it. So the same kind of works in the opposite. You might have to finagle it a little bit. There we go. And we got it to snap. Alright, so now that we got our floors into place, that's the meat and potatoes of this build. Now we're going to do some walls. Now I can get these angled walls here to go into the rock real nice. And then all I have to do is change them. As long as I have the Blue Ridge set, is I can just change those from from the slant walls or angled walls or what have you, and then just change those into half walls. And then that way I can kind of clip into that rock a little bit. And then it's going to make my build not only look a little bit more integrated, but it's going to give me more room, because we're going to have to do some custom wall work on top of this platform if we want to really maximize the amount of space. I still want there be enough space to be able to run around the outside like a railing, but I want the interior space not to be sacrificed for it. So in order to do that, we're not going to go the full length of the roof platform. We're going to go about give ourselves a quarter length on each side. And what's cool about this, it's actually going to help us when it comes to our roofs. So first things first, as I'm getting these walls in place, I want it to be wallpaper side in. So in order to do that, because they're going to want to snap to the foundations, I'm just flipping the walls around with catwalks, as you see there. And then I'm just going to add those catwalks. So that way I have another anchor spot. See how I can now put that wall over, yep, wallpaper side in. I wouldn't have been able to do that without that catwalk into place. So again, gotta love catwalks, right? And as we see here, that's kind of what the theme of this is going to be, the getting them a quarter length away from that outside perimeter. And in order to do this, there's going to be a lot of wall merging going on. So first thing, I'm going to get my corner pieces together. And I did a wall merge there as a test, so I'm going to show you guys how to do it now. Kind of how I want it to look. So I want a half of a half wall, or half of half walls, sticking through that wall here in a minute. But first I'm going to get those other walls into position just to get an idea of how this is going to anchor. Then I'm going to turn them either into the abandoned mindset full walls, or I'm going to turn them into the corroded concrete full walls. Because these don't have to be half walls. They can be full walls there. Save a little bit of budget. And then I'm just going to catwalk off of those other, like any half walls that I have into position. And then I can just go ahead and add and snap my half walls through there. See? And then later I'll just be able to repair those other walls and change them to whatever wall type I want. Again, this works with the abandoned mindset as well. Those are two pivotal sets for doing a build like this. And like I did before, I'm just going to catwalk off of those. I get my next set into place. Now, if you don't use wallpaper, you'll see a little bit of flickering from like the border of the greenhouse walls poking through, but as soon as you add wallpaper, it'll cover it right up because the thickness of the wallpaper, it changes that a little bit. So you won't see any flickering when you do it like this. I'm going to add our last set of walls on the kind of the far end there here in a second. And sometimes you'll have trouble getting a catwalk to snap and you won't understand why. So just go off of another wall. Don't get frustrated. Just go with your next best option, like you saw there. You always want to do the bottom wall first. Don't do the top wall first because you can snap a half wall to the top of a half wall, but it's really hard to snap a half wall to the bottom of a half wall. We have all of our glass walls into place now, which is great. We just have a couple more walls we'll need to add. First, I want to make sure I can add my doors because they can be really trying. As you see, some of them turned red and some of them turned green, and then you just want to modify them. And I'll show you a little bit later how you can do this with roofs too. There's a tedious yet fairly simple way to add doors where they won't normally snap on a build like this. So now we're going to do our roofs though. So again, because we went that quarter length, we gave ourselves a quarter length buffer all the way around. This will make having the overhangs on these roofs like super easy. You don't have to do any roof merging to make this work. You will, for what I do here, I will do one layer higher, so it'll be a 2-layer total for these roofs. But because again the walls are the way that they are, they're like basically they give you a 1/4 inch gap on each side. That gives me enough room for an overhang on a roof. And we won't have any flickering roofs today. If you need more context on how to do overhang roofs, I do also have a tutorial for that as well. Again, I have a lot of roof tutorials. In the meantime, first things first, we're going to get this roof into place. So I flattened it there. And if you noticed, I'm using half walls and catwalks to get it out into place. So what I'm doing is I'm just taking my half walls like that, and I just did this a moment ago. And I'm just changing the positioning of where that roof is going to be. I'm getting it to where it's going to sit exactly over the roof where I want it to go, which is a quarter wall hangover over each side. And because I did some finagling with those catwalks, that should be perfect. On this particular build, I didn't need the overhang in the front, and like there's one wall that doesn't end up getting an overhang, but the rest of them do. And I kind of made that the front feature wall. So we got our first roofs into place. Hooray! Now I want to get the last of my like structural walls into place. There's one I will do later to like section off or partition a bedroom. Which I'll show you how to do that, which will also be how I show you how to do the door thing. But right now, I'm just double walling this. So in order to do that, I had another wall out and I flipped the wall going the other way, kind of like I did before. Then I just turned it into a doorway and I snapped a wall into place there. And as you see, we added our first layer of roofs. And you could probably just have this be done. I noticed I added those other roofs over there in the middle too. They kind of gave a little bit of a skylight effect. But I'm going to go ahead and double roof this. That way I can choose whatever roof I want to be on the top of the roof, and then I can still have a nice underneath. Like probably use the Clean Ranch set. That's one of my go-tos. And then for the top, I'll kind of figure out whatever matches. It'll probably be like the White Spring roof or something like that. But just like I did before, all I'm doing is I did that roof stacking trick, and then I'm walking it down right now. And shazam! We've got our roofs, our next layer of roofs into place, or at least the kind of that key roof that we're going to need to get the rest of them into place for. So in order to do this similar to the floors before, all we're going to do is we're going to destroy the roofs that are in the way. But we have this gap right there. You see that? There's a gap where I want the front porch. I want something over there, like some kind of like a pergola effect or something. So we're going to get a roof over there too, but we can't snap one into place there because of the pre-existing. So it's going to have to go back about a quarter wall length away from that cliff side. And I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. But we are going to, either way, we have to destroy these roofs to get to it. So right here, we're going to go ahead and add a wall off of this roof. Notice I extended it out quite a bit. And I'm going 4 catwalks. 4 small catwalks equals the length of a foundation or a roof. And what I'm basically doing is I'm maneuvering this wall to go exactly 1/4 length away further than the roof is right now. So right now it still is about the same as it would be. But if you notice here, I'm going to do 3 now instead on the catwalks. And then I'm going to do 4 going the other way. And this will give me, like, I'll be a quarter catwalk or quarter foundation or quarter square away from the build now. 1, 2, 4. There we go. I miscounted. So 1, 2, 3, 4. If you notice, it extends out away from that roof over there about a quarter length, which is what we want. Now I'm going to show you a neat trick here too. So I want the roofs all to be going the same way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and attach a corner piece to this. And notice now it's going the other way. So now I can remove that roof. And now I have all my roofs going the right way. And yeah, look, see, it's a 1/4 inch further or quarter length further away from the rest of the roofs. Now I just need to destroy these roofs. I'm just going to kind of snap them through. And once we get all the way over there, as you'll see in a second, I wasn't able to snap that roof to the cliff. See it? It gives me that error, but I could snap it right there. And yeah, am I going to have a little flickering here? Sure, for a moment. But we're going to get rid of that too, because I'm only going to do one of those roofs as an overhang. Because again, I wanted kind of like a pergola style over there. So what I'm going to end up using is the pavilion roofs. And that will get rid of that flickering. And I'm going to double layer this roof anyway, which means that you'll never see any of that. And the other nice thing about doing the double roofs too, if you notice on this, on those like custom roofs in the middle, there's like those two kind of angled holes. This will fill up those holes a little bit because right now to me they're just a tad too big. I don't want them to be that big, so I want to fill those up. So it's like a extra result of doing this, like a benefit. And there we go. We now have those roofs into place, and I'm just going to go ahead and destroy all the other roofs and get them out of the way as well, so I can put my double roof into place. Because you can't do, it's never going to let you put the roofs right on top of each other without destroying them first. It'll say it's intersecting or floating. It'll give you some kind of error message. But see, yeah, it covered up that gap on the like upper skylight windows a little bit nicer. See that? And then we just have a few more here to go. And then the roofs are done. And we'll work on some interior stuff here in a minute. Once we destroy these, we can just snap the rest into place. And then the structure itself, at least the exterior side of it, will be completed. All right. So now we talked about that door, and I'm trying to put these walls up to make a bedroom. And I realize now that I can't get a door into place without doing some serious finagling. Now again, the way that I'm going to do this is very simple and yet tedious. So the thing about why you can't put the door into place is either the door frame is a little too high or the door frame is a little too low, and the door is not supported, and or it's intersecting with your floor. So there's a simple fix. I destroyed that first top layer of floor. I'm going to add some mats. And this is going to be kind of a trial by error, or, kind of method. Because as you notice, I added some mats and the door is still not placing. So I'm kind of going to add one more mat. See if that works. Still not placing. Add one more mat. See if that works. So these like blue mats are great because they have a nice thickness to them. So they stack a little higher. But once you get up to a point where you feel like you're in a really good spot where you should be, where you might be able to get your door in place, that's when you can start with these thin little mats. Like that's how sensitive this door is to get on this frame. But watch, now I put on those mats and I can get a door in there no problem because it's fully supported. Now I showed you that and I ended up tearing down those walls anyway because I wanted them to be in a slightly different spot. So I'm going to show you how to get those walls into place from here. Basically, you're going to have to flex these roofs up, and then you can get attached catwalks back. And these walls inside are going to have to be double walled because I don't want that like stone exterior to be like part of the walls. Notice I did that again there. Got my wall into place. And I did the door thing. But before you do the door thing, before you remove or put that floor back or roof, make sure you remove your little pads there. Cool. All right, so now what we're going to do, because we want to double wall this, and remember this build is like not exactly 2 walls wide. So I destroyed that wall after I turned it into a corroded concrete wall, so I can snap another wall into place. because it's going to have a little bit of an overlap here by about a quarter wall. Once I get my catwalks into place, I'll be able to snap my next wall in. Perfect. Now I've got to go the other way with this, so I'm going to go ahead and angle those roofs up, and I'm going to end up destroying them too. And then once I have these destroyed, it'll allow me to snap the catwalks up above, so I can then have the flexibility to add my half walls, or my double walls, excuse me. And now I can just either do one of two things. So I'm going to double wall two different ways here. The first way is this way, which is just going a catwalk further out, removing the catwalk sets, and then I can do another catwalk going in, turn that into a doorway, and then snap a wall in, which I'll be able to do right now. But the other thing I can do here too is, because I have a doorway right there, and that wall has been destroyed, remember our little wall friend right there? It'll allow me to snap a wall to it, to that door. See that? So I didn't have to do anything fancy there. And now all I'm going to have to do is turn this one into the corroded set. I'll turn both of them in there just to be on the safe side, into the corroded set. And then I'll destroy them, and I'll be able to get that last wall into place. I've got a doorway already, so we're actually looking pretty good here. Bam. Pretty easy. It looks a lot more complicated than it is, but again, you have to do some of these wall merges in order to do like an odd length for your build. Or odd dimensions, I should say. This build is like 1.75 walls wide, while being like 3.5 walls long. And then once we have our walls into place, we can just turn them into whatever we want them to be, which in my case, I want them to be the fire hazard walls. I really like those walls. And then I can do whatever I want. Wallpaper, have at it. And now I just put my roofs back into place, and my structure is complete. All I got to do is decorate, add some pizzazz to it, and we're looking good. Kind of like this. See, I think this came out really nice. Anybody who's ever wanted to build on a cliff, whether it be on Seneca Rock or some other really cool cliff, I hope this inspires you to come up with a really cool way to do it while making it not look like it's just a bunch of naked foundations hanging over. If you like what you saw today, please make sure you recommend it to others to take a look, subscribe, what have you. I really appreciate y'all checking out my video. Y'all stay blessed and stay safe out there. Thank you.